The Tilta Float is a great gimbal support system, but it comes with its downsides. So in this video I want to show you all the downsides in details, and in this way you can better decide if the Tilta Float is something you should buy or not. So first of all, I want to show you how we use the system, in which configuration. Of course, it's a Tilta Float, and we use it with a C70 from Canon mounted on the RS2 gimbal from DJI. But we don't use it in the standard configuration where you are a single operator. We use it in a configuration where we are a three-man crew on set. So we have one float system operator, and we have an operator for the DJI Force Pro, and we have a focus puller. So this is something very different than it comes as default. So you ask yourself, why do we use the Force Pro connected to the float system? The answer is that the difference from a Steadicam to a gimbal, you can always tell by the movements of the pen axis, because you have a certain deadband in your gimbal in order to get this smooth movement. But this is giving you sometimes a lag when you turn around and you want to track a person. So this is where you can see the difference between Steadicam and the gimbal. So now we are operating our gimbal with Force Pro, and we have disabled all the deadband. And now you have an operator again that is controlling the Force Pro on a good tripod head. And now you can again get this very direct movement. So if a person turns, the operator can turn in the same speed as the person turns and follow the person without that delay and deadband. So that makes it very close to a real Steadicam system. Another word in regards to our configuration is that we use the C70 from Canon with their Cine primes. And it's really heavy, and I think it's really the max weight you can put on the RS. And the last part of the configuration is a follow focus motor from Tilta, the Nucleus N, mounted here on the RS2. And here we already come to our first downside of the system. In the standard configuration, you are supposed to operate the float, you are supposed to operate the focus, and you are also supposed to operate the movement of the gimbal. And this is truly, in my perspective, too much for a one-man band show. Another downside of the system is that you have this rail mounted here in order to lock the RS2 on the DJI Float. The disadvantage is that you can move the position forward and backward, but it's not a cross, so you cannot move the position sideways. And this is a disadvantage because we have mounted the focus wheel that we need in order to connect to the receiver for the Force Pro. So the gimbal is not any longer in balance on the left and right axis, so to say. So you would also need to make balance adjustments on this axis and not just on this axis. On the bottom of the Tilta Float, you can do that. You can make adjustment on both axes in order to balance the support system. This would be great if they had implemented the same solution also here on the top of the system. And for you who doesn't know what the Force Pro is, it's a device from DJI that mimics the movement of the device and gives it to the gimbal. So when I pan right, it sends the signal to the gimbal and the gimbal will pan right. So you can have an operator controlling pan and tilt axis of the gimbal. So the operator of the float doesn't need to control the movement of the gimbal and can solely focus on operating the float. So let's talk a little bit about the DJI Force Pro. The DJI Force Pro is developed in combination with the bigger gimbal, with the Ronin 2, and it is not primarily developed for the RS2. However, DJI made it possible to connect the Force Pro also to the RS2, but it comes not with all the functionalities. On the Force Pro there are a couple of buttons how to control the movement, and they all don't work on the RS2. So if you want to adjust the pan speed and the deadband and so forth, you need to go in the app, and the app is quite complicated, and to find the right sub-menu in order to make the adjustments on these settings. So it's certainly not straightforward as as you would operate the Force Pro on the R2 on the bigger gimbal. You can do it, but it takes some time to adjust that. This is not a downside, of course, of the float system, but if you operate the float system together with the Force Pro, it's certainly a downside. So in the 3 operator setup, you need to find a way how to send the signal from the camera to the operators. DJI comes with a solution. They call it Ronin, and you can mount it under the RS2 gimbal. And it has an HDMI input and sends it out via Wi-Fi to your smartphone. However, it simply doesn't work. We have tried it with different smartphones, we have tried with different tablets. The signal is very choppy, the signal lags, it freezes frames. It makes it virtually impossible for the Force Pro operator and for the focus puller to do their job. So this is clearly a waste of money. Again, this is a downside of DJI and not of Tilta, but you need to know it if you want to considering buying one. So don't buy the Ronin. Instead of the DJI Ronin, we have mounted a HDMI transmitter here on the bottom of the system in order to send the signal to the Force Pro and focus puller. We connect this with a very thin HDMI cable and it's absolutely no problem. And this makes it very easy for the focus puller and the Force Pro operator. Now let's come to the absolute biggest drawback of the system. And yes, it's a great system for the price point, but you cannot expect to get absolutely level footage, no matter how good you try to close objects. So it's very difficult to walk by, for example, a table and to have the table not going up and down slightly in your shots. So it is smoother, absolutely smoother than holding a gimbal with your hands, but it is not as smooth as a really expensive Steadicam system on the market. So there's a difference. It's absolutely not a problem to get these wonderful shots where you track a person and go before or behind a person and make a tracking shots. It totally works wonderful, but it is very difficult to get acceptable shots from objects that are close to the camera and in a straight line that you go in parallel with. So let's talk about the second biggest drawback of the whole system, and this comes with the vest. It's not a full body mounted vest, it's more like a waist mounted vest, and it doesn't sit tight. And you can see the problem that if you just move a few degrees from one side to the other side, your whole system will move considerably here on the top. If I could wish something, it would be a full body mounted vest where you have a vest that is also over your shoulders and where you have much more controllability to these left-right movements. Another disadvantage of the vest is here the locking mechanism. You can either put the locking mechanism to the left or right side, and it has a RS reset. The disadvantage here is to fine-tune the system. So I have put some marks on it and that I know where I had it last time, and it usually is the right position for me, but making adjustments on the move is quite difficult. So now to the big question, would I buy the system again? Yes, I would buy the system again. You get a lot for the price point, and it's not perfect, but you get wonderful footage out of it. If I had one wish from Tilta, I would like to have a system that is way higher in quality, where you have also fixed all the downsides I was just talking in this video. Even if it's triple the price, it would be a game changer to get even a higher quality system with a real vest, with a better spring arm, and you would still have a huge market. And it would be absolutely amazing if you could make a product where you could use the big gimbal, the R2 gimbal, on a gimbal support system. And as you can perceive, this review is not sponsored by Tilta or any other company. If you'd like to see more of these critical product reviews, please follow our channel.